I was born in Hyderabad, but whether I go to Houston now or I come to Hyderabad, I'm still, my best meal is, of course, in the morning when I have a plate of idlis, in the lunchtime when I have rasam and chawal, rasam and rice, or dinner when I have a nice plate of biryani. So the question is, no matter, you can take a boy out of Hyderabad, but you can't take the Hyderabadi out of a boy. So thank you so much for welcoming me back to my hometown. As Khushbu also mentioned that I've turned 60 recently, so that's a pretty old guy. So my son told me, Dad, you entered the wonder years. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're always going to be wondering where you parked your car, where you left your keys, where you left your wallet. I'm wondering if I should still pay for his education. My wife admonished me, she's right here, she told me, Ramesh, remember to smile a lot. Use your teeth while you still have them. So here's it, I'm going to smile. My topic today is 2020, looking back, looking forward. It's some of the lessons that I've learned in investing over the last 30 years or so of investing. And 2020 means trying to have a clearer sight, if that can be possible. But technological disruption has always been a part of investing. Let me give you some examples of how market people always have to deal with technological disruptions. Now, I'm not sure if the same problem in Hyderabad, but if you're living in Bombay, one of the biggest problems you have is where do you park your car? Whether you're doing a society, whether you're doing it in an office, whether you're doing it on the road, parking is something that neighbors fight over, that friends fight over. So what is a parking lot worth in Bombay? If I ask my friends or ask my family, anywhere in, say, the South Bombay, which is the more upscale area of Bombay, costs you 30 lakhs, 50 lakhs just to park the car a year, to buy a parking spot, which of course is more than the cost of most cars. So as of today, it costs maybe 30 to 50 lakhs to find this parking car, all right? But let me present you this photograph. It's not in very high resolution, but in 1900, this is a view of New York's Fifth Avenue. And if you look very closely, there are only horse-driven carriages on this road. There's one car circled in red, right? At the turn of the century, 1900, there were no combustion engines. The mode of transportation was through horse-driven carriage. And yet, what happens 13 years later? On the same street, on the same morning, Easter morning, only electric combustion cars run by oil and gas. You can't even spot a horse. In 13 years, the entire industry changed from horse-driven carriage to horsepower-driven carriage. And this happened almost 100 years back. So when we talk about technological disruption, that has been a part of markets for all our lives. Let me share another example with you. The two biggest companies in the world that, when I was growing up in the photography market, were Kodak and Polaroid, right? We've all heard of these companies, and we all took photographs. Today, both these companies are bankrupt. But are we taking more photographs or less photographs than before? I mean, selfies is so common. Everyone takes so many selfies. We're taking, in 2017, 1.3 trillion photographs. The market itself has grown 1,600 times, a CAGR of 54%. And yet, the two most prominent companies in the world that did photography are bankrupt today. Taken over by Nokia, taken over by so many other companies. But the companies that made photography aren't there today. Again, an example of technological disruption that has taken place and has moved away the old pioneers. This was because Kodak and Polaroid were in the analog business, they were in the chemistry business. They could not understand that when people want to take a photograph on the cell phone and just show selfies to their friends or forward it around, they always thought a photograph had to be printed, so the huge chemistry process behind it. So, what is the technological age disruption in 2018 that I'm so concerned about now? What is the thing that will impact our lives so much? The Saudi oil minister of all people, the country that is blessed with oil, that has oil, you practically dig a few scoops of sand, you'll find oil there. He said one thing which is very profound. He said, the Stone Age didn't end because they ran out of stones. This age that we are living in after World War II is basically the oil age. And a lot of people who think about the future, who ponder the possibilities of what could happen, believe that we are at the cusp, at the end of the oil age. What is happening is that you're moving from oil as a primary fuel to solar power, to electronic vehicles which are battery powered, to a whole host of other technologies, which means the end of oil. Now, the end of oil is saying one thing, but it has almost $10 trillion worth of economic output at stake. All right? Look at the amount of industries that are impacted by oil. Obviously, the automobile industry is impacted by oil. So many chemicals, plastics, infrastructure, roads, insurance, all impacted by the automobile. And there's a clear possibility that in the next 25 years, oil will no longer be the dominant force of a modern life. Let me give you an example. The auto industry. On the left-hand side is the current auto industry, and I'll just give you some examples. How many parts are in an engine? 20,000 parts. How many parts are there in electric driverless vehicle? 20. What is the cost of a driver? Even in India, it's $400, which is probably the cheapest we have anywhere in the world. What will it be in an autonomous vehicle? 0, right? The problem is that once we get rid of the cars and we have autonomous vehicles, say you come to this conference at the Marriott Hotel, all of you will pick out your smartphone, click a button, a car will come pick you up, drop you to your residence, go pick up the next person. So we will no longer own automobiles. They will be self-driving these automobiles. And everyone will own fleets of cars, just like you own electricity or car rental companies. No one will have ownership of a car. And the cost of running the car will be so much cheaper so that everyone will be able to afford it. So even if you want to live 100 miles out of town, you can do it because there's equal, cheap, efficient transportation that will be available to all the citizens. Now that is maybe 20 years away, maybe 30 years away. And of course, once that comes, and they're all operated by electric batteries and without a driver, it means the internal combustion engine or the oil that fuels that will no longer be needed. And if that means we won't need any drivers, we won't need that many highways, we don't need that many insurance companies. So as an investor, it has profound implications for how we invest. So I talked to you about technological disruption, explained to you how investors have to constantly grapple with technological disruption. But it's not always true. The other side of the coin is that there are great businesses that are always available for investors to look at. In a study from almost 90 years, they found that only 4% or 1,000 companies have accounted for all the gains in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The best performing stock, can anyone give me an idea which is the best performing stock over 90 years in the Dow Jones? Anyone has a guess? Any young person who studies? Yes, sir. Huh? Gee, that's a good example. One more. Gee, of course, after 100 years is out of the Dow now, but Berkshire Hathaway, very good. Who's that? Good. That's good. You're getting warm, but not warm enough. Who said tobacco? Good. Make him to the head of the class. He should be the CIO of the Mahesh Group. Right. The best performing stock, sir, has been a company called Philip Morris and now Altria that over 90 years has been the best performing stock in the Dow Jones. Can you give me an example of how much the stock has gone up in the 90 years? How many X has it gone up? Yeah, he's obviously a very smart, acute professional. It's gone up 2 million times, all right? Philip Morris has gone up 2 million times during that period. Now, think about it. It's a tobacco business, right? There are taxes on tobacco. People discourage you from smoking, and yet this company has delivered the best returns. Why is that? Because human habits don't change. People still want to smoke or have a drink or go on a vacation. So that company embodies perhaps the best example of that. No matter what price the government charges for it, the consumers of that nicotine rush will pay for it. And the company then spins it off as dividends. So I think the per capita smoking has gone down, the absolute amount of smoking has gone down, and yet the company, because of dividends and buybacks, has delivered the most stellar return of all stocks in 90 years. Let me give you on the roll just so that you can share which are some of the best companies in the world in terms of top 20 companies over 90 years. A lot of them are household names that you're all familiar with. So there are businesses that stand the test of time, that don't get up, down through technological disruption. But they're basically basic businesses that do so well over a period of time, or people that capture a complete market, as example is Microsoft has done or Amazon is doing. But this is the honor roll, I call it, of the 20 businesses that have survived 90 years and delivered the most stellar returns to customers. I wanted to share some learnings, particularly with the younger members of the Mahesh Group, because I really want to reach out to them. And as elderly people now, as senior citizens, we have an obligation to pass on some of the things that we've learned. So the first thing I always teach them is start early in life. And I'll explain this to you a bit later. But the earlier you start, the better off you are in this business. Second, invest always in appreciating assets and not depreciating assets. Let me give you an example from my own life. I have a young son who, thinks I'm too old, but that apart. When he was 12 or 13, we had a name ceremony for him. So invited about 200 guests to the ceremony. Some people bought envelopes of cash, some people bought gifts, some people bought clothes, some people bought toys. I'm sure my wife and I gave him a lot of toys. But one very wise friend of mine gave him 500 shares of a particular company that were worth 25,000 rupees at that time. All right? Now, the 199 other guests' gifts have completely vanished. We don't know who gave what. The toys are broken down. The cash is spent. The clothes are too short to be worn. But the stock that my wise friend gave him is appreciating. Today, it's worth, that 25,000 gift is worth about 2 crore rupees. Right? So... This is applause for my friend, not for me, right? The name of the company, just for the record, is HDFC Bank, right? I'd happily say it, but I think I'd embarrass him. I've said it before and he gets very embarrassed about it. So maybe privately I'll tell you. But the point is that for a young man like my son, what is the lesson you learn in life? That you need to invest in appreciating assets. All your toys are gone, your clothes are gone, your gifts are gone. But someone gave you a gift, and when you're 30 years old, you already have $500,000 US. In fact, you get more as dividend than the cost of the shares every year. So it's very important. I would encourage all of you, when you give gifts to your children, to think about appreciating assets, to teach your children the value of investing in appreciating assets. The fundamental, and I think Mr. Mundra will back me up on this, the fundamental ethos of my business is that you understand compounding. Right? It's how money becomes wealth. It's how we all can become rich. All right? Let me explain it to you in a bit. This is an example of compounding. No matter what interest rate you get, but the earlier you start, look at the payoff differences. When you start at 25, you start at 35, and you start at 40. At 40, if you start, even if you double the rate of savings that you did at 25, you're so much poorer off than when you start at 25. So, the key takeaway is start early. Let me give it to you by one more example. I like to share the story of these two daughters who are both wild and film stars, so everyone can identify with the characters here. Miss Karishma and Miss Karina, as all of you know, are two sisters, right? Let's say Karishma is the hard-working one. She starts saving when she's 18, but Miss Karina starts saving when she's 25 years old. And Karishma saves only for 8 years, while Karina saves for the rest of her life. So, till she's 60 years old. She saved a total of 4 lakhs over 8 years, while she has saved 19 lakhs over 38 years by saving 50,000 rupees a year. Right? But what are the payoffs? At the end of 60 years, Karishma, who's only saved for 8 years, and a matter of only 4 lakhs, ends up with 12 crore rupees. While her sister, who's worked all her life, ends up with only 6.5 crore rupees. Though the interest for both of them compounds at 15%. So the trick in life to tell your children is to start early. There is no other trick to getting rich. Look at it this way. If you start as a professional when you're 25 years old and you save and invest until you're 55, 30 years of your life you save. If you can double your money every 3 years, that is, you make 10 doubles in your lifetime, 10 lakhs of money becomes 100 crores. If you double your money every 3 years, Starting with any amount of money. You start with 1 lakh, it'll become 10 crores. You start with 10 lakhs, it becomes 100 crores. You start with 1 crore, it becomes 1,000 crores. That's the sick. Einstein called compounding the eighth wonder of the world. And it is truly the eighth wonder of the world. So, if you don't believe me, I would normally do this, but this is too august a gathering to do this. You double it 10 times, double 10 lakhs. I'll do it just for fun. 10 lakhs becomes 20, comes from, can you get up? Can you get up? Yeah. Tell to me, 20 becomes what? In 3 years it'll become 40, right? In 3 years after that? 3 years after that? 3 crores, 20 lakhs, right? So that's say 3 crores. Then 6. 50, 100. 10 doubles, you get to 100 crores, right? So that's the secret of wealth. So I would encourage you all to tell your young people to start learning compounding and to start investing. Essentially, it means that you're growing your money at about 22% a year, all right? The BSE Sensex has returned 16, 17% CAGR without dividends, all right? So it's not that difficult. Is it easy? No, it's not. Making money is never easy, as you all know. But is it simple? Yes, because the roadmap is before you. People like Buffett and people like Charlie Munger and people like Peter Lynch have laid out the road. This is how you get rich. The other thing is that India grows at night. So a lot of people always tell me that, oh sir, इतनी तकलीफ है इस देश में, कभी इलेक्शन हो रहा है, कभी RBI गवर्नर फायर कर दिया गया है, कभी फॉरेन संस्था बेच रही है. There's so many things going on at night. Let me show you all. In 1989, when I started the stock market, and till 2018, a period of almost 30 plus years, let me show you all the things that have happened in India. You can go through this list. I mean, we had the nuclear bomb blast and the markets fell. We had Gujarat riots and the ground fell. UPA 1 came and the market went circuit down. We had DMON, you had GST, you had NBFC troubles. And yet, when I came to the stock market, the index was 800. And today, it is 36,000, right? So, this is a long-term chart of the Sensex, okay? So despite all the troubles our country has faced, the index has compounded a period of 16%. 16% means 800 becomes 36,000 over a period of time. So there's no point in being unnecessarily bearish on this country because we are a country of 125 crore people. The world has changed. Globalization might be under attack right now, but I think basically it's irreversible. So we will be joining the global mainstream, the global middle class in terms of our consumption habits, in terms of investment habits, in terms of our outlook in life. And that means this 125 crore people will create huge opportunities for all of us. So despite governments coming, despite governments going, India will grow at night, will continue to seek prosperity in this country. So don't be too bearish. Instead, try to find great businesses that you can invest in, create great value that you all can invest in. The other question people ask me is, give me some, sir, you've had some great opportunities in life. We won't have some great opportunities in life because 30 years have been great. How do you know the next 30 years won't be great? Let me give you some examples of how bull markets have behaved in the past. The Dow went up 6x. The Nikkei went from 1357 when Tokyo, Japan hosted the Olympics to 38,900, a 30x move in the index, and the currency appreciated too. So it was almost like a 100 move in the index. So remember, before the Tokyo Olympics, after World War II, Japan was considered a third world country, extremely poor. Today it's a member of the G5, one of the most advanced industrial economy in the world. And perhaps the Indian bulls are right, that we're on the cusp of a Japan happening to our country. And the teething trouble, what we're going through, is not something that investors understand, but the market is telling us a different story. So bull markets have a long ways to go. So far, we've only doubled the index. So my feeling is that we're just in a correction in the bull market, not at the end of the bull market. So I'll just end with a slide to update you for 2019. The October fall and the recent fall seems more like a vicious correction than a bull market top. The Dow looks toppish. This was done a few days before the Dow fell yesterday, so I'll take some credit for it. And there is a chance that the President Trump will face some problems and be forced to resign in the future. So that's my update for 2019. These are some of the sectors that I remain bullish or bearish upon. As I've told you, with the advent of the automobile, auto ancillary, auto insurance, refining, all could face threats. These are some of the sectors that will probably do well over a period of time. It's something to think about. So investing was a continuous process. We have to continuously look for sectors that benefit us. And as I told you, that investing is a long-term business. You have to look at over a 30 years period of being able to compound periods over time. There is no quick rich scheme. They used to say about people that, how do you make $1 million in the stock market? And the wise men would say, you start with $2 million. Then you'll end up with $1 million. No, but that is a joke. Stock market is a great way for young people to invest their savings and over long terms invest in great businesses to create enormous amounts of wealth for themselves and their families. I'd like to just finish my comments by talking just one more word about the Mahesh Sabha. You know, when I was growing up, I also grew up in a Maheshwari, in a Marwadi household. My parents and my uncles and aunts would always tell me that, jahan nahi jaye belgadi, jahan nahi jaye railgadi, wahan pahunch jaye Marwadi. Right? So I just hope, thank you. I just hope with the yeoman work that Ratiji, Duji and other members of the steering committee are doing here, that a lot of us in our community we can take pride in reaching across all sectors of this community, all areas of this community and this great country of ours, and also reaching out to various businesses. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. Thank you all so much.